This was just kind of it feels as though it was a more methodical loss where it was adding up the culmination of multiple mistakes as opposed to a singular disastrous mistake. Welcome back, everyone, to Random's Thoughts, coming to you today with another Phobies game breakdown. We're going to be talking today about a recent loss that I just had, and honestly, going into it, this is the first review that I've had for this game, and I'm not really sure exactly where things went wrong, so let's jump in. So we're on Billy's room. Now, chat was trying to convince me, and in retrospect, since I lost, it couldn't have gone any worse, to start with Tribal Jackalopes, aka Jackalope King, into Flopsy or vice versa. And honestly, it might be decent for this map. Thoughts for another day. But we started with our usual opener here with Cat Cassowary. Now, our opponent counters with larger Cassowary, and that is Primate number 9. I ended up electing to take this top spot because wherever we moved, we were going to probably lose the Cassowary if we advance because this can leap onto something. Now, here's mistake number 1, in my opinion. I mentioned this while I was playing, but the cat is vulnerable here just to having this walk up, punch it, and then get hit with a jar. Granted, we're only -1 key, we would still control the panic point, but we would not be able to kill this, counter kill it, with jar and Cassowary. We're just not pushing enough damage because it would be positioned here below the boxes to the east of the cat. There's a hex here, and we just wouldn't push enough damage. So we would lose the cat for free. Maybe that's fine. The bigger issue and the actual mistake, in my opinion, was jar. I don't think jar did anything for us in this turn or on this turn, and I'm not sure it was great over the course of the game either, to be honest. We likely would have been better off with, say, a Murderfly, maybe even Jackalope King or Flopsy or something else that gives us more board control. Now, since we were up 2-1 Phobies, say we ignore the jar. We have cat, we have Cassowary. Assuming they don't nuke the cat with their own jar and primate attack like I was describing, we have more Phobies than them. They'll obviously summon one, but it's going to take time to get there. We have a little bit more of a mobility advantage. Point is we could have possibly banked keys. Even if we just put out a cowbell and then bank the other 2 so that we can play a 5 on the follow-up turn, that might have been better. Bottom line is I think jar wasn't great for us here. We'll have to see if I'm misremembering and there were other points where jar was crucial. So our opponent takes the bottom point, makes sense. We again can't really threaten it, and they follow up with Stabby, which is usually my opener, is I go cat Cassowary into Stabby. Now, we ended up going Stabby anyway, but the Stabby could have been online already, and instead of being here, it could have been here, like to the east of Cassowary and southeast of the cat, which means that it's already in position as compared to what our opponent has now. So this position here is very good for them because we can't reasonably threaten this thing. It has a pretty large bank of hit points, as you'd expect Stabby to have. It's more than ours, and it covers both points. We're not going to get 2 melee hits in because there's a choke point, which is another reason that you want this spot and not one forward of where our Stabby is, which while that can cover both points, it can get hit by 2 melee things, hypothetically. Our opponent doesn't have that, but just throwing it out there. If we were positioned slightly differently and our opponent was back 1, we might be able to get the Cassowary and the cat on it and do other stuff. That isn't the case. So our opponent has better positioning here. We are even on actual panic points, so we're okay. I elected to try and break that parity, which I think is fine. We were going to lose the cat. If they tried to retake point, we were going to kill or severely damage whatever was remaining. Instead, they banked and decided to put out Erratic. Now, I banked as well once I noticed that they banked, and also have 6 keys. Now, I elected to go for Sheep because I was expecting, hey, we're going to try and land on Stabby and Erratic at the same time. Honestly, as a flaw in my own gameplay, I think I need to play Sheep more because I honestly have a lot of difficulty getting Sheep to connect at all, let alone with a double connection like this. Now, we will get a double connection momentarily, but not really. You'll understand when you see it. So the game plan, as mentioned, was to try and connect with at least Erratic. Erratic is the primary one because we need to get it into range in order to try and burn it down. So that's why I'm taking this line to move it here. Now, what we should have done, here's a minor mistake. What we should have done was put the sheep one space lower. If the sheep was one space lower, it could still get on Erratic. The only place it could realistically go is where the cat is or backing up. Then we threaten other stuff. I think that we got to find a better way for sheep to connect. But I don't know, just to talk about sheep in general, I don't know that sheep is actually worth it. I don't like it as an Erratic counter, but the fact that we were possibly 9 keys here if we get the double connection, or on here, basically if we hit 2 of these 3, we were probably going to be happy. But one of them I think had to be Erratic, and I don't think that 2 out of 3 was ever going to happen. So that's why I'm not a huge fan of sheep as a counterplay, but that was the reason that I did it. Just explaining. I think it was a mistake in retrospect. So we had the jar mistake, we had some minor positioning, and then we had the sheep mistake. So our opponent repositions here. And I see chat's confirming. Yeah, I agree with you, chat, that people bait the sheep, and I don't think sheep is great. It's tough to make it happen. There have definitely been good sheep hits that I've had and my opponents had against me, but I think it's just really challenging to make it happen. So we take I was going to say sheep kill here, but it's not a sheep kill, it's a cat kill. Now I'm baiting the Erratic here. We follow up with our own, which again, I also don't know that I like. We had 8 keys, we could have gone for one of our 7s, wouldn't have been Fish Tank, could have been Flesh Crawler, could have been Pterodactyl. We could have instead gone for a different 6, such as Rambolina, or a 5 and a 3, a 5 and some Bank. There were options. Instead, we went for Erratic because I kind of fell back on Old Faithful. The cassowary donation is expected, but the idea was to pin the Erratic in place. Now, this makes it, and let me point this out, because this is something I also want to do a video on. Also, this is kind of cool looking. But key trading is really crucial in Phobies, where you want to trade up your lower keys for their higher keys, or make whatever the trade amalgamation ends up being, that you come out plus keys, as in you ended up taking away more keys from your opponent than they took away from you. What ends up happening here is, let's assume that the sheep connects, which, spoiler alert, it does. Sheep connects, and then we've lost cassowary. Sheep is going to die, right? They're going to summon something else. The Erratic is still alive. The primate's there. Hypothetically, they could reposition the stabby. They have a million things. It's going to die, right? We're sending it like a lamb to slaughter. Anyway. The problem here is that we're essentially trading 6 for 6. Now, there's an argument that Erratic is a much more valuable phobie than cassowary plus sheep. I think that you could debate that, but I think that that's an issue. I don't know that this trade was worth it. Now, I got very excited here because this is a dimensional phobie, but realistically, this was calculated. Our opponent still has 3 keys left. Shocker. What phobie does everybody out there... We'll poll the class. What phobie do you think is coming out when they have 3 keys left and something's about to be poisoned? I'm just going to give you the answer. It's Clinico. Clinico's coming out. So we end up hitting both of these. We did want to connect with Erratic, so we're still kind of on target here. Now, I went for Woolly Bully just to kind of try it. I don't think Woolly Bully was the answer. Woolly Bully did afford us a number of different things. It might have been okay, but I did make another positioning mistake here. I needed to move Erratic. We needed to move Stabby back 1. That was part of the reason I moved Erratic up, and then I just never did it. So, we end up losing this Stabby for no purpose. There's literally no reason for that Stabby to have died. So we just threw it away. And honestly, when you look at the end of the game, missing that Stabby possibly could have mattered. So we may have found where the big failure was. All of the other ones, I think, were not... They weren't good plays, They were okay. You can make the argument that they were bad, but maybe they weren't really bad. They weren't actually bad. They certainly weren't really, really bad, I don't think. Could be wrong. But basically here, we're just repositioning to try and dodge our opponent advancing, which we kind of expect them to. Now, the Clinico is on cooldown, and we Woolly Bully here, so that Bully doesn't die. So we're just going to try and soften up the Beauty, this big laser, eyeball laser beam thing. The not Beholder, I guess. Which I'm sure that's the pun for anybody. The beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and it's, you know, a flying tentacle thing with a giant eyeball. I don't know, maybe it's not, but that's the first thing that comes to mind. I mean, behold and beauty obviously already has the pun, but anyway. So we're just chipping this stuff down with Erratic. Possibly, the reason I backed Erratic up on the last turn, by the way, like I said, we were dodging everything, but I was fearing... I want the poison damage to hit Erratic as much as we can, so if we offer up things to get hit so it can life drain, we're risking problems there. Because then the poison is just less effective. Now, we weren't going to kill their Erratic with poison no matter what, hence why this jar is here. Because the poison was finished, it was down to like sub 100 health or something, I think. But enough for in jar range. We knew that the jar was going to get offered up. And we're about to go to another mistake that I made, and I'll explain what happened here. So we offered the jar up. We could have walked up with Woolly Bully, but then Woolly Bully would have died. And I felt that Woolly Bully had more value at this stage than Jar. That could be wrong, but we can't really invade with a Jar. We can't reclaim spaces with a Jar because it's going to die to literally just about anything on the board. I guess it could survive a Clinico hit. Woohoo. Actually, can it? Yes, we would, because we didn't take any damage yet. But I felt the Woolly Bully between the power down and everything would give us an opportunity to maybe send in Erratic or even stand there with Woolly Bully and tank something that we wouldn't have been able to otherwise. So the obvious play of the Primate coming in happens. They do heal up the Beholder again. Well, Beauty again. Now it zaps us for a little bit. Here's where we make a mistake. Now... this thing is at 1500 health. We're not killing it. We're doing 920 from this, plus another 448, so 1300 and change, maybe 1400, but we're not killing it. So if we allow anything to actually be exposed to this, it's probably going to die. They don't have leap up, though, notably. So they can't leap to the Erratic, but they would be able to kill Woolly Bully in conjunction with the Beauty. We can't take the middle point because Beauty is now powered back up because Woolly Bully's effect fell off. And if we take the middle point, then they can laser beam in a straight line. They can behold and light these two up. What I elected to do, even though I had considered the play that I'm going to explain after this, I elected to take this bottom point. Because then that means, oh, they can't behold us. They can move down here and zap us. But there are a number of problems with this. One, to just throw it out there, what we could have done instead was move to this point behind the stem, which is relevant, because you're about to see what our opponent does. If we give up the stem, which we're about to do, our opponent recaps the majority of the panic points. They effectively lock us off with Beauty, because they're just going to light up everything that tries to walk up. And now Primate is on the stem, which is a crucial part of this map. Controlling your opponent's stem point is very important. Now, imagine if Woolly Bully was up here this turn. He would have gotten hit once by the Primate on the stim pad, but would have lived. Do I think that would have made a difference? Probably not, because Erratic was way out of position. Erratic is never going to get up here in time to help. So instead, we power this down, just because we're there. But we're never going to be able to do the remaining damage that we need to actually kill this Primate. We're just not, because Woolly Bully can't one-shot it, and as mentioned, Erratic's not going to get there. So ultimately, we made a number of mistakes. I don't know if any of them were super egregious. There were some that were worse than others. But I think a lot of the early mistakes with choosing the incorrect phobies, choosing some of the incorrect positioning, getting a little overexcited about connecting with certain things like the sheeping gas play, I think all of that just summed up and spelled defeat. And that's kind of where it went, as compared to a decisive, oh, well, I accidentally incinerated 7 or 10 keys because I mispositioned and my opponent blew me up because I didn't see this play coming. This was just kind of it feels as though it was a more methodical loss where it was adding up the culmination of multiple mistakes as opposed to a singular disastrous mistake. I don't know. Maybe that wasn't the case. If you saw other mistakes or you feel differently, let me know down in the comments, or if you want to come critique my gameplay live, feel free to come by my live Twitch channel at over at RTChompGG on Twitch. But that's going to do it for this game breakdown. So as always, everybody, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And Black Lives Matter.